Hello and welcome to my Southern Exposure. It's Sunday, July 27, 2020, and welcome to our 10th show. First thing that I want to do is let everybody know that we had our very first 7,000 plus views on our show. The numbers for our last week's show are not going to finalize until next week, but that's definitely a kudos to Rajee as well as Mick, and also more importantly, you at home, the viewers. I want to thank you all for watching and continuing to tune in and see what we have to say. We have a great show planned for you today. We have a lot of serious topics, but the most important thing to do right now with my minute of conversation is to let you know a little bit of a personal story. So I'm still working on the house, working on gardening. We created an indoor gardening area for our fruits and vegetables and also spices, which was a lot of fun. Had to fix another leak, but it was outside of the house. That wasn't so bad. And pretty much that's about it for me on a personal note. I want to toss it over to Rajee and see what's going on in Rajee land.
Oh my gosh, toss it. I'm going to catch it. Let me see. Wait, hold on. I caught it. Hey everyone, welcome back to another fabulous show. Well, at least we hope so. So let's see. I have something personal to share with everyone. It was a very moving, touching moment for me this week, and I'll get into that later in the show. Of course, we're going to continue to give the information to crime about connecting with Crime Stoppers, because we still are determined to find the murderer of Bree Black. And we have some fun topic, or a fun topic today, which I'm excited about, and that's all dealing with UFOs and stuff like that. So I'm ready. I'm ready, honey. Mama took her vitamins, and I'm nice and ready for this show. And I wonder if Mickey's ready. Hey, pretty Mickey.
Hi guys, I am also excited and ready to be here. I think that the topic this week is just it is a little change of pace from some of the more in-depth topics that we've had and some of the more, I guess you could say, heavier topics that we've discussed so far. I think it's just a fun way to kind of show off other sides of our personality, because it's just a little bit left of center, but it's gotten enough coverage in the news recently to make it worth people's time, because it is part of the cultural discussion. But at the end of the show, if you have any questions about what we talk about, you can reach me at mick@mysoutherexposure.site. That's M-I-C-K. I know people still think it might be Nick. It's Mick. Just have to clarify that. I'm going to throw it back over to Joseph now to get started.
Oh, and wait a minute, before you throw it to Joseph, let me catch it again. I forgot, like I usually do, but that's just me playing hard to get. If you want to get in contact with me, you can reach me at Rajee@mysoutherexposure.site. Rajee@mysoutherexposure.site. Okay, throwing it to Joseph.
All right, thank you so much, guys. And actually, I apologize. I was having a little bit of a problem with pulling up the files that I created for you. So I will put them up when you let people know about your topics and also the segment teases. While you guys are talking, I will put them up so everyone can see. So what I want to briefly go over is a little bit of a tease, but you already did it really well, Rajee, and also Mick. I'll just give them a little bit more information. So the main topic today, I should say main topics today, are UFOs. And part of the reason why is because the senator in Florida just did some things that are going to make those things come to surface. I'm not a big fan. I don't want to talk about politics, but he's doing a good thing. Another thing that's closely related to UFOs would be Mothman sightings. Mothman sightings have been happening since 1966 all across the United States as well as the world, believe it or not. And a lot of those, some of those I should say, are in actual airports. The other topics are Loch Ness Monster And up in Ohio, I'm pretty certain that maybe Mick might have heard of the Lake Erie monster, probably as a kid. You might have heard about it. Something very similar to the Loch Ness monster. It looks like he doesn't know, but maybe he does. Now he's shaking yes. And I want to talk about Bigfoot as well as Yeti. So those are the basic, I should say, the topics and subtopics, and I have a lot of information about it, and I want to pick both of your brains to see what you think about the information that I tell you and see about what you think on your own as well. So over to Rajee to talk about her special segment, and I am going to pull up your information so everyone knows how to get a hold of you while you're talking, and same thing with you, Mick.
Oh, really? Well, first of all, I don't know who the hell Yeti is. And Mothman, he's in my bedroom in the back waiting for me. Sometimes I feel like I have some Mothman in my bedroom or someone related to him. So I guess I could share a little bit about what happened to me this week. Oh my God. Well, okay, so for anyone that watched my personal videos that I share on my social media, a few months ago I lost a really close friend of mine named Sandy. And it was in April. She died about a week or a little more after my birthday, because my birthday's April 7th. For anyone that wants to send me gifts, let me stop. But yeah, so she passed away, not from COVID, to make that clear. She was on dialysis and she was pretty sick, and she was just tired and ready to go. But of course, it didn't make it any easier for me. You know, I continue to mourn her. I mean, it's getting easier, but I do think about her often. And so the week that she passed away, she said to me, did you receive my birthday card? So I told her no. So she's like, well, that's strange because I mailed it a week before your birthday. You should have already gotten it. So I was like, well, I don't know what happened. I said, well, maybe it'll come this week. But then she passed away and I forgot about the birthday card. So this past week, I was rushing out to go do some errands, and I stopped by my mailbox to check my mail, and I opened the mailbox, and there's like, you know, advertisements and crap, but then I see a card. So I grabbed the card, and it's from Sandy. I immediately started crying. I mean, this is 3 months after this woman has passed away. The other ironic thing is that her birthday was the next day. So I get a birthday card from her about 3 months after she passed away, and I get it the day before her birthday. Now, I don't know. I mean, people can chalk things up to coincidence, but I think it's just us doubting good things. When good things happen, you know, spiritual things happen, we get signs from the other side. We have a tendency to doubt those signs. But this, however, I received this card 3 months later. I don't know, but to me, the timing of it was truly divine. So it was just like a sign to me from Sandy that, you know, we're still connected. And like I said, I broke down crying, but it was tears of really joy, I would say, and just me not believing that I actually received the birthday card from this woman. So anyway, that was my touching story this week. I swear, when things like that happen, it just affirms for me more and more that we're more than just these bodies that we're in and that the planet Earth that we're living on. And so I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Mickey, and I can get more into detail later on my feelings about that sort of thing.
Well, I think that's so fascinating that that happened the same week where we're kind of talking about supernatural, unexplained, bizarre phenomenon, and just this idea that the more that we know about the universe, the less we understand, just in the sense that, like, we know that water is unnatural in terms of other substances, because when it solidifies, it expands as opposed to contracts. And because of that, that's why ice floats. Typically a solid version of a form of matter will sink to the bottom, but for some reason ice floats. And because of that, that is entirely foundational to the way that our lives are able to be led, because otherwise ice would sink and fall to the bottom of the ocean and completely change our ecosystem. So again, it's just like knowing, just because we know about certain things doesn't mean that we necessarily understand how they all work, but I'll get more into that later. As for myself this week, the weeks really do all blend together, and it's hard to quite keep up with things. Well, for one thing, I was still waiting for my COVID results to come back from Kaiser Hospital. They are still not back. So pretty much by this Monday, it's going to have been 2 weeks since I got my test taken. So at this point, I mean, it's basically going to tell me that I had COVID or didn't have COVID, or even if it tells me like, all right, well, 2 weeks ago you didn't have COVID, like who knows what is the case this week. Like I did have to leave the house a little bit, like to go and I did leave today to go to a protest, and you never do know if you haven't been tested, or well, if your test results haven't come back yet. So that's something that's kind of weighed on my mind a little bit, but I do genuinely think I'm okay. In addition to that, I know that back at home, my mom's side of the family was having a funeral service for my grandfather who had passed away, and it was a bummer to just not be able to be there with all of my family and see them at this time. I know that they were being as safe as they could at the funeral service, and I know that other members of my family unfortunately weren't able to make it because of COVID concerns and whatnot. So it was still nice to know that like I could catch it on a live stream and I was able to like enjoy some of the ceremony. My sister's boyfriend, he plays the bagpipes, and so actually at my grandmother's funeral as well, he also played the bagpipes. And not that anyone's necessarily sitting here planning their funeral, but if you're looking for a nice touch for your funeral, the bagpipes are really a reverential thing to add. That was something else that had happened this week, and just was sort of on my mind because, that's family and you're not able to be home for that. And then finally, continuing to do organizing stuff. I've been doing more work with the LA Tenants Union. I was out doing outreach for them yesterday, and still doing work with the group, the prison abolition group that I'm a part of as well, called Power Blossoms. And if you have any information, or if you have any questions about that, you're again more than welcome to email me at the email that you saw before. But again, it's Mick at mySouthernExposure.site. But I've talked enough. And throw it back to Joseph so we can get this show rolling. Joseph?
Thank you so much, Mick. Thank you so much, Rajee, as well. Thank you both for sharing very personal stories. And what I want to do is also express my condolences for you, Mick, and your family. And obviously, everything that's happening now is hard for everybody. So it's definitely not the best time, but at least we have each other, and we have some wonderful people who watch our show, and they get some of their inspiration and some of their joy comes from watching us. In reference to my tease for my segment, it's not a good topic to discuss. It's COVID. The numbers are starting to get ridiculously scary. And unfortunately for you, Mick, California is #1, and now we have taken over New York in #2. So if someone does want to get a hold of me, I can pop up in a couple seconds and instead of saying out loud, trying to do the best that I can with posting everything. So you can get a hold of me at the email address that's listed there, joseph@mySouthernExposure.site. That's joseph@mySouthernExposure.site. What I want to do now is talk about a handful of businesses and give my co-hosts a moment to relax and let themselves get comfortable. So I will talk just very briefly and let you know about some great businesses. WeGo LLC is a local option and owned and operates here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, that also services the Wilton Manors, Middle River Terrace, and Oakland Parks areas as well. If you pre-plan your transportation needs, you can make your life a lot easier. If you need a ride to or from work, if you need your grocery shopping done, even banking, they'll do your banking for you as well as laundry services. No touch options are available. Delivery drivers will be dropping things off. If you do need a ride, you will have to wear a face mask and you'll have to wash your hands as well because they will be cleaning after each and every person who gets in and out of the car. You do need to plan your trip at least 24 hours in advance because services are subject to availability. Please visit www.wegollc.app. If you do have a place that needs to be cleaned, let's say you are a realtor or you have a vacation rental or maybe a long-term rental that needs to be cleaned up, I suggest that you contact Trustworthy Cleaners. They have been cleaning in the Wilton Manors, Middle River Terrace area and Fort Lauderdale for over 10 years. They have excellent references. They even clean pools, boats, and cars. They do have some new procedures as well for protection. But they are open and ready to serve you. Now with no contact options to keep you and their employees safe, you can email them directly at trustworthycleaners33304@gmail.com. Each and every Wednesday at noon, I have to tell you about Big Daddy's Stock Tips from the Hood. He will actually be on the show later this evening to give you some stock tips. Just want to tell you about it so you can tune in for his show. You will definitely enjoy it. He's got a great personality. You will see it shortly. So basically, it's a stock tips from the Hood. He will make things easy for you to understand when to buy, when to sell. You can learn how you too can be a day trader. The BST every Wednesday at noon on the Rogue Radio Network. Once again, that's the Big Daddy Stock Tips from the Hood on the Rogue Radio Network. You can check it out at rogueradionetwork.com. I would suggest that you do. While you're stuck at home, you can learn something new. And now it is time to talk about our topics. I got to tell you about this UFO stuff. And the part that caught me off guard is that it came across 3 different feeds, because I get feeds from a lot of different resources. I don't just use social media. I don't just watch the news. I have a lot of different things that I look at and consider. But there's some interesting information. The Pentagon UFO unit will be publicly releasing some findings. I don't know exactly what findings they're going to release, but the unit, known now as the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, that's a mouthful, will report at least some of its work to the Senate Intelligence Committee every 6 months from this point moving forward, with some of the group's past officials hinting of possible otherworldly artifacts. And that's from the New York Times that reported that on Thursday. So this just came out as a press release on July 23rd. The whole reason why I thought about this topic and kind of quote unquote went down the rabbit hole with this is because it's a little bit of a different perspective on things. I have a personal experience that myself and my partner have experienced that I will share a little bit later, but it is partially due to Marco Rubio. Senator Marco Rubio, I won't say what he is, Democrat or Republican, it doesn't really matter. Acting chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence told a Miami CBS affiliate earlier this month that he wanted more clarity from the task force as a matter of national security. This is the part that's kind of disturbing. So we have quote unquote, we have things flying around our military bases and places where we are conducting military exercises and we don't know what it is, and it isn't ours, quote unquote. That was the end of the quote Rubio said.
Wow.
The next quote, which I think is definitely interesting and it's important to say, frankly, that if it's something from outside this planet, that might actually be better than the fact that we've seen some technology leap on behalf of the Chinese or the Russians or some other adversary that allows them to conduct this activity. So Rubio's committee required the publicizing of findings as part of the committee report on intelligence agencies' budgets for 2021. Quote unquote, maybe there's a completely sort of boring explanation for it, Rubio added, but we need to find out. So people have been experiencing UFO phenomenon for a long time. This is not some new topic from Area 51 and everything else. So my question for you, Rajee, is, are you from planet Earth? Are you from Planet Beauty?
Oh my God. Well, it's funny because there's been times in my life as a trans person that I felt like people treated me like I was from another planet, and I felt like I didn't belong here. So it's interesting that's how you toss it to me, because I would often say, like, back in the day when I was transitioning and going through a rough time, I'd often say, like, God, people treat me like I'm from another planet, like I'm not human. So I totally can relate to what you said. I have not personally had any experiences with UFOs that I know of. My experiences have been more spiritual. And I mean, maybe, we could put them in the UFO category, of another world category.
Do you see how I put up a little alien photo?
Yeah, I saw. I see it. Yeah. So, it's interesting because, like I said, with me, and I'll explain later in the show, but like with me, it's more been like on a spiritual level that I've had like some what I would consider experiences with beings from the other side or from another world other than planet Earth. But like the typical UFO stories that I hear, I haven't had anything like that. It's interesting that a number of people say that they've had these experiences. And, if they are UFOs, beings from another place, it's interesting how they come into our zone and they do whatever surveillance or whatever they're doing and pretty much keep themselves unknown. And I think probably they're like, well, those humans can't accept one another. They're not going to accept us. Like if we can't accept one another for our differences, like we're really going to embrace UFOs. So they probably know that. And that's why they come in and go out, without a lot of people seeing, So anyway, Mickey, what do you think about it?
Well, for one thing, I definitely think that there is alien life out there. Whether or not we've come in contact with that can be up for debate, but the universe is way too big and we're way too small to be so arrogant as to think that that we're the only beings in this universe. Because the thing is, if we are, that's really depressing. I think that's a really depressing thing to think that like in all of cold, dark space, there's just us. That's a little weird. So I definitely think that there are aliens out there. Whether or not they are the beings captured in what the Navy calls unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs instead of UFOs. I obviously am not quite sure, just because obviously the Navy doesn't really know what they are and they haven't shared with us. So there is a possibility that it could be, something out of this world. Like Joseph also said, maybe it could be something that another group or another nation is using to spy on the United States. And quite frankly, I would actually feel the opposite in terms of, I mean, at this point, I think it makes more sense that a country is spying on us. And the thing is the United States spies on other countries all the time. And the thing is, I'm not saying that that's okay, but it's if we're worried about other countries spying on us, they spy, we spy on them, and we probably do it more than they do because we have drone technology. We have, like, we invest all of our money into our military. It wouldn't be surprising that we actually have technology that other countries might think is an unidentified flying object, because that's what we use our money for. And at this point in time, with everyone so divided on certain things, the thought of adding the confirmed existence to aliens to everything, I really feel like would just throw more gasoline on the situation that is already at hand. So, I mean, if it is a rival nation spying on us, like, they can spy on us. I don't really care, because the United States deserves to be spied on. That's my 2 cents, though. I'm gonna throw it back to Joseph now, or Rajee, if you had something to say.
I just want to say real quick, I totally connect with what you said, Mickey, because really, don't they say that the planet Earth is like a grain of sand on the beach? And so you're right, like, we're so small compared to the existence. Like, yeah, it would be pretty depressing to think we're the only beings. Anyway, I just had to throw that in. Go ahead, Joseph.
The reality is 63% of the Americans believe that aliens are real.
Okay.
I'm going to share a quick story, 2, all in one, but I'll make it quick. You've been to the house before, Rajee, so you know where we live. We used to live a couple of doors down. And about 2 or 3 years ago, while we were sitting in our backyard, just having a campfire, we had a little fire pit, myself and my partner, and also a close friend at the time. We're just relaxing, looking up at the stars, and having a good night. Not drunk, not high, none of that kind of stuff. Maybe like a glass of wine or whatever. But as we looked up, we all noticed at the same time, like, there were fixed points in the sky that looked like stars, just like a star in the sky. And 4 of them started to move in sync with each other, and then stopped.
Wow.
And then moved, and then stopped. So it wasn't like a satellite that continues to move or continuously moves. This looked just like stars out in space, in outer space, that moved and stopped and moved and stopped in sync with each other. That was about 2.5 years ago. And then, on a side note for myself, I don't know if my partner saw that or not, but I saw in the same property, 2 doors down, I saw what looked like a green ball that was just hovering next to one of our trees, from, I don't know, maybe a distance of 60 to 80 feet from where I was. So those are my only 2 experiences. I know a lot of other people have actually seen UFOs and whatnot. That's the reason why I posted the little funny photo of the green man, and then also followed it up with the actual picture from a FLIR footage from a military aircraft, which showed a image also as well. But this is going to be interesting, I think, to see what happens when they have to release some information, because they've been doing this for a long time, but really haven't released very much. So I want to see what they're going to do. Hopefully they will. And I do want to connect this story briefly, because we're getting close on time, to something that's also otherworldly to a certain extent and closely related to aviation as well. Mothman sightings before disasters. I don't know if Rajee said she's never heard of the Mothman before, besides the ones eating her clothing. And I don't know if Mick has heard of the Mothman before, but Mothman has been around for a long time. It's not something new. There's a movie that came out with something that's similarly related to Mothman. I think Jeepers Creepers is something similar to that. But basically, it started 1966 in Point Pleasant. I think I can't remember the name of the city. Point Pleasant is where it started. I have to find where it is from the state, but it's in the United States. And then also 1986 in Chernobyl, before the Chernobyl disaster. In Point Pleasant, it was before the Silver Bridge collapsed. And then in New York City was just before the Twin Towers collapsed also as well. So reportedly, this thing has been seen and photographed, in some cases, blurry photographs also as well. I'm going to actually pull up a couple of images here so that you can both see it and you guys can both start talking about. I'll use the images while you're both speaking. If you want to start, Rajee, go ahead and let me know what you think about this Mothman thing, which happens before before disasters, basically. Before something bad happens, this Mothman shows up, and usually right about where he's at. This is the first image is just before 9/11. The one on the right is an actual photo that was taken next to a building. And then the one on the left is like an artist's rendering of what it would probably look like based on the actual size of the actual photo. What do you think, Rajee?
Wow.
This creature shows up just before there's a disaster is what the premise is. This thing shows up before lots of people die all at once.
Yeah, I'm a little speechless. Like I said, personally, I've never heard of Mothman, but it's interesting that if this creature or this being is showing up before disasters when a lot of people die, like maybe it's some sort of sign for people that, something bad's going to happen. But I don't know. I really, because I haven't heard much about this being, I really don't have much to say about it. I mean, like I said, to think that this being shows up before a disaster. I mean, if I ever saw something like that, oh my God, I probably want to go run and hide in my closet or something. But I don't know if you can hide from it. If it's your time, it's your time, So, yeah, I'll toss it to Mickey.
Yeah, I definitely am one to say, as I said before, that we don't necessarily know the exact answers to everything. And quite frankly, the more that we do learn about things, the less that we actually know, because, yeah, you understand maybe how for example, just how a disease is transmitted, but why is it transmitted that way? Getting to the why is hard to really get to, because you can't ask particles like why it is that they are attracted to certain objects, or why opposites attract, why positive and negative charges attract. That doesn't, when you think about it, like, all right, maybe that does make sense, like, because they're trying to complete themselves, but why wouldn't like attract like? So I definitely understand people's fascination with certain types of cryptids and other forms of, like, just like mythical or like supposed supernatural creatures, like the Wendigo or Bigfoot, the Loch Ness monster, stuff like that. Personally, with the Mothman, I've never actually run afoul of the guy. I don't know anyone else who has either. I will say the one photo that Joseph did show, that one where it looked like it was on a bridge, I was actually looking at stuff beforehand. Apparently that one is actually just, it's a piece of metal that's kind of like fallen. So it's not like really an official photo. So since there's no real official photo like there is for the Loch Ness monster, which even that one, it's like everyone knows that photo, but obviously we can't really confirm that that was a real thing, or that there wasn't just like a trick of the water or something. So I'm not gonna prescribe a lot of thought to the Mothman. And like, I'm gonna say this and then like he's gonna show up outside my window tonight, but that's sort of just how I feel about it right now. And not to say that there aren't cryptids out there, but like, I don't have time for him at the moment. But if I do see him, then I'll know, all right, maybe it's time to get my earthquake kit in tip-top shape.
Well, you know what? I think if the Mothman really wants to be recognized, he should definitely contact our show, so we can do an interview with them. That might be something fun, and maybe we can talk him or her out of of having like a bad rap, maybe. In reference to the
Exactly.
Loch Ness monster, it's actually funny that you brought up that topic, Mickey. And I do want to show one of the most publicized of kids. And I think that you said it that way, because I think all of these things fall under that topic. I'm just going to pull it up right now so people can see. Everyone's already seen it before. There's really no point of reference with the photo. There's no boats around it. You can't see trees. You can't see if it's just a stick floating, but it clearly looks, this is the most classic photo of the Loch Ness Monster, but the Loch Ness Monster, by name Nessie, is supposedly a large marine creature believed by some to inhabit Loch Ness, Scotland. However, much of the alleged evidence supporting its existence has been discredited, and it is widely thought that the monster is just a myth. However, there are a lot of people who've talked about it, who've lived there. And the interesting thing is that it first started in a biography from Saint Columba in 565 AD. According to that work, the monster bit a swimmer and was prepared to attack another man when Columba intervened, ordering the beast to go back. It obeyed, and over the centuries, only occasionally sightings were reported. Many of these alleged encounters seemed inspired by the Scottish folklore, which abounds with mythical water creatures. We have those also here in the United States, the Lake Erie Monster. But in 1933, the Loch Ness Monster's legend began to grow. At that time, a road adjacent to the Loch Ness was finished, offering an unobstructed view of the lake. In April, a couple saw an enormous animal, which they compared to a dragon or prehistoric monster. In December 1933, the Daily Mail commissioned Marmaduke Wetherall, a big game hunter, to locate the serpent along the lake shores. He found large footprints that he believed to be a very powerful, soft-footed animal about 20 feet long. However, upon closer inspection, zoologists at the Natural History Museum determined that the tracks were identical and made with an umbrella stand or an ashtray that had hippopotamus leg on the base. Wetherall's role in the hoax was unclear. This is what I'm going to postulate for both of you, and I want to get your information, Rajee. We find new creatures all the time, every single day. We find new plants. We find new things. I saw a story online earlier this week where they were talking about some chasm was opened up right here, I think, in Florida, where now there's all this new marine life that they're looking into. Is it possible that for whatever reason, a prehistoric creature could have been kind of encapsulated and then came out later? I mean, we have permafrost that's melting at high acceleration rates, I should say, in Antarctica and also Arctic Circle as well. So is it possible, or do you think that it's just all bupkis, Rajee?
Yeah. When it comes to the creatures like, the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot and Nessie, I think, and, other beings, I don't know. I think I would say that it's more made up. Because this is the thing. If you, let's say it was some prehistoric creature that was encapsulated. I mean, this thing would have to be eternal because, how many thousands of years has it been? And so for this thing to still be alive, it would have to be like an eternal being that didn't die, never died. So I just think, what happens is with people, with us human beings, is someone will tell a story and then people kind of run with it. And then, different, maybe sometimes people add things to it or take away. Because if you take 20 people and you line them up and you start with number one and they whisper in someone's ear a certain message or whatever. By the time it gets to the 20th person, it's like total, not totally different, very different. There might be some sort of link or similarity to what the first person said. So I would definitely say that these creatures are probably more, BS, BS for lack of a better phrase. Now, I will say this. That doesn't mean that I don't believe that there's beings from the other side or from, another dimension. Because I have certainly had some spiritual experiences, is what I call them. And my youngest one, experience was I was about 1.5, 2 years old. And I can go into detail later on, but it was, I think, a very spiritual and divine experience. At the time, I didn't realize how profound it was. But, as I've lived my life and I look back to that moment, I think things could have totally gone in a whole other direction if it wasn't for this guidance that I got at that age. So, if you want, I'll go into it now. It's up to you guys, or I can share it a little later.
I'm down to hear it now. Do we have time for it, Joseph?
Absolutely.
All right, yeah, let's go for it, Rajee, honestly.
Okay, so, well, of course I had a crib, but my parents, I guess when I was cranky or, crying through the night or whatever, my mom would take me and put me in the bed with my dad and her. They put me in in the middle of them. So we were sleeping, and I wake up, it's like early morning, and my mom and dad are both asleep. But I wake up and I sit up in the bed and I see these two men in our bedroom, like these strange men. I didn't know who they were, and I'm like staring at them like, who are these guys? But I couldn't really talk at the time. I was like just starting to like formulate my words and stuff, and and sentences. So I'm staring at them, and the one noticed me. They were going through my parents' dresser drawers and stuff, and then the one, like, he turned and he saw that I was awake, and he tapped his, I guess, his partner on the shoulder and, like, pointed at me. And, like, in other words, look who's awake. So all of a sudden, I heard a voice. And the voice was like a motherly type sounding voice. And the voice said, "Lay back down, baby. Come on, go back to sleep, lay back down." And I remember following the voice and laying back down, and I think I was sucking my thumb. And I'm laying there staring at them, and then my eyes started closing, and I drifted off to sleep. When I woke up, and I sat up on the bed, my mom and dad were in the hallway with the police. And, at that time, I couldn't, like, explain to them, like, oh, my God, like, I saw these guys, and I couldn't, like, say any of that. And so I remember my mom walking over, and I was probably like, what's wrong, or crying, and my mom was like, "That's okay, it's okay. Some bad men broke in, and they robbed us, but it's going to be okay." And in that moment, I didn't realize how profound that moment was for me and my family, me and my mom and dad, because as life went on, I think about that moment as I've lived my life. And can you imagine if I had awakened my dad or my mom, and what kind of thing would have gone down with those two robbers? I don't even know if they had guns or what. And, anything could have happened. I mean, so I think it was such a divine moment for me to follow that voice and go back to sleep, because they stole what they stole, and everyone ended up, being safe. Like, we weren't hurt. So that's the first experience I can remember that I would consider, like, woo, spiritual, and from the other side. And I I have a number of them. Yeah. So Mickey.
Yeah, as I've tried to think about it, I feel as if if we're talking about just supernatural like elements and like spirituality and whatnot, like I grew up Catholic, and growing up it was very easy to believe in that sort of stuff because it's easy as a kid to believe in the goodness of people and that there's life everlasting if you lead a good life and stuff. And also if you're raised in it, it's easy to kind of fall into it. That said, while I can't think of really off the top of my head any sort of profoundly spiritual or like inexplicable paranormal experiences that have happened to me, I feel as if life has a way of reminding you of you're thinking about a good friend and you're just thinking about them randomly one day and you can't quite remember why, and then later that day they call you. And there's just there are a lot of things that are small like that maybe it's not even that it's supernatural, it's just another element of the universe that we don't understand, that when we think of someone, our brains, the part of the brains that we don't realize are active or sending out a signal or something. This is literally just conjecture that I'm just kind of pulling out of my butt. So I definitely think that having had experiences like that and just coincidences that are too wild to be coincidences, in my opinion, I think lend a little bit of credence to the idea that there's more to this universe than we realize and more than meets the eye. That said, as for things like the Loch Ness monster and cryptozoology and stuff like that, I think there's definitely something to be said about the fact that there are animals that we don't know exist out there because we haven't discovered them yet. That's totally understandable. But I don't think that there's necessarily, as Rajee pointed out, an immortal pliosaur living in Loch Ness. I don't think that there's necessarily one Bigfoot that's roaming across the United States. And especially nowadays where anyone can get anything on camera and people camp out in the wildest places now. I feel like if we're going to get a real Bigfoot sighting or like a real Loch Ness monster sighting, it's probably something that would happen in the next 10 years, because probably in the next 5 years, I would like to think, our phones better be waterproof. So people will have their phones out and recording everything. And then that's when you're going to see things like a pliosaur comes up from the depths and people reveal that like, oh, there's like a marine reptile that survived after all of these years, or there's some type of snow yeti that does live in the mountains of Siberia or Tibet or whatever. But at this moment, I don't know that there's anything that I can conclusively say that cryptid exists, like the frogman exists or the Lake Erie monster exists, without a doubt. I'm not saying that they don't, who knows. Chances are right now, I would say probably not. I feel like it's going to be something that we weren't expecting or weren't looking for. Like someone's going to be out in the middle of the ocean and something's going to come up to the surface and it's not going to be anything that we expected, or, like stuff like that. And it's just going to be at the right place, the right time. Someone has their phone out and it catches like this animal or this thing on camera. That's what I think. But because right now, there probably are some videos that are unexplainable, but I haven't really seen them, and none of them are ever like clear quality, which is the other thing that's always like very convenient about videos like this. They're never clear. Like even that Loch Ness monster photo, which for one thing was taken by the Daily Mail, red flag #1. But it's like you always see things like these UFOs in the sky, and it's like, yeah, of course it's a UFO. Like I can see the radar that you're using, and even on your high-tech military-grade radar, you can't even pick up what it is. Of course it's an unidentified flying object. Like, but for all we know, that's like a bird that's been thrown by like a couple hundred miles by like a hurricane or something. We don't know. So I think that like, yeah, there's like definitely things that we don't know and we don't understand, but there are certain things that I think that maybe we don't even need to let them go, but they can just You don't need to spend your every waking hour looking for the Loch Ness monster. Like, there are better things to spend your time on and better things to put your resources towards. That's me, though.
I agree with you completely, Mick, and also Rajee. I didn't plan on sharing my story from when I was a child, but it's kind of a sad story, but also a very powerful one, similar to one that you just shared. My grandfather, when I was young, had cancer, and we're talking when I was, 5th to 6th grade. So I think it was 12 years old. I would take care of him, bring him his food, and take care of his, bodily function leavings and get rid of them. As a 12-year-old boy, I used to do that for him all the time. And when he needed me, he would ring a bell, kind of like the ones that you use or that you see at the old hotels, like the hotel bell. You ding the little bell. So he would always ding the bell, and then I would go and help take care of whatever it was that he needed. If he needed something to eat, or if he needed his pee bottle emptied, or whatever it was. So unfortunately, because I was so young at the time, I was not able to be there at the hospital when he passed, and it was very distressing to me that I wasn't able to do that. But approximately a week after he died, myself and our family were all sitting around our dining room table talking about Grandpa and going over everything. And I heard the bell ding, and I didn't say anything. And I was just like, was that real? I'm like, kind of like looking around. And then I saw my family members turn. I was like, okay, so I'm not crazy. So I definitely was not a crazy 12-year-old boy obsessing about my dead grandfather. It was definitely some energy that moved forward and made that bell ding a couple of times. Unfortunately, I no longer have that bell. It's been lost, but I definitely think that is something that was definitely otherworldly or non-explainable. But I hadn't planned on sharing that story, but it's similar to what you said that happened to you in reference to, for you, it was protection that to keep you safe, Rajee. For me, it was my grandfather letting me know that he was safe and that he was okay, and letting me know that he was fine where he was.
Yeah.
And by the same token, I mean,
story.
Thank you so much. I also, I dream about all of my dead family members every night. I see them, as well as people that are alive. So it's a blessing where I get to see them. But Mick's got his hand up down there. So Mickey, go ahead and talk, but you're going to have to unmute yourself.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm unmuted. The reason that I put my hand up was because actually your story reminded me of something that didn't personally happen to me, but happened to my aunt back when my grandfather died about 8 years ago. She is all the way out in California. Well, she's all, like, when I say all the way out, like I'm in California, but back when I was living in Cleveland, she lives out in Marin Valley. And she had remarked how on the day that my grandfather had passed away, she had been just going about her daily business and hanging out around her house. And she mentioned how at one point during the day, she had come into the kitchen and she saw that my grandfather's cup, his favorite, I don't remember if it was his favorite glass or if it was his favorite mug, was sitting out on the counter by itself, just on its lonesome, shortly after he had passed. And I remember her telling me that story and saying, it wasn't eerie in any way. It felt very, very familiar. It felt like a reminder, okay, Dad is still here. Dad's still with us. And that is something that I do think about, because I don't know why, like I know my aunt wouldn't make that up. And how could you make up a story like that? It's just kind of random. So
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Joseph, because that did jog my memory with another instance that kind of indirectly happened to me. But I think that's, just another testament to what we were saying before. There's inexplicable things that happen to all of us. So
It's funny. I really think when it's someone close to us that passes away, they try to find ways to connect to let us know that they're okay. They say that we're vibrational living energy in these bodies. So if you think about it, well, of course, physics shows that energy never dies, it just changes form. And when my father passed away, my mom, her and my dad were together for almost 40 years. And so when he passed away, my mom said that the electricity in the house that we grew up in, she still lives there now, was going haywire. Like she would turn off lights and they'd flicker back on, and light bulbs would be flicker. And, I thought to myself, if we're vibrational energy and we leave this physical body and this third dimension with the earth, which is what they say the earth is, it's the third dimension. Wouldn't it make sense that because we're vibrational energy, we would find ways like electricity to give a sign, And so it was really interesting when she was complaining. She was kind of like, it was like creeping her out a little bit, when it was happening. She actually had to end up go and stay with one of my cousins for a couple weeks until like she got herself together and everything. But yeah, I think about that. Or like a song. I don't know if someone passes away and you hear a particular song on the radio. That whole thing about vibrational frequency, So anyway.
No, I think that that's very, very pertinent as well, because there's also just times where you're thinking about a song and then it comes on the radio and you think, how is that possible? And with what you were saying about the electrical issues that you had when your family member passed and how like it kind of like disrupted everything, I will never forget the day that Michael Jackson died. This is such a random story, but my friends and I were at Cold Stone Creamery. I was probably 15 or 16 years old, and we're sitting there and we're eating ice cream, and my friend gets a text saying, my mom just texted me Michael Jackson is dead. And at the time, there was a massive storm going on in Cleveland, a massive thunderstorm. And you know what I'm talking about if you've lived in Northeast Ohio and been there for like a maelstrom. I'm sure you guys probably had the same thing down in Florida as well. But I remember it was this massive storm, and then all of a sudden, all of the power went out in Cold Stone Creamery. Like we learned that Michael Jackson was dead, and 5 minutes later the power went out. And again, that might just be a coincidence. But it was such a monumental thing because Michael Jackson was just such a constant major figure in pop culture, and then just to know that he was just like kind of just gone in an instant, it felt like, all right, there's a vacuum in place here with that massive presence gone. Regardless of how you feel about him, just like that massive presence is now gone. It leaves that vacuum that you think, like Rajee had pointed out, there's just like, if there's all of these vibrations that have suddenly been taken away, there's that rush to fill them in. Again, though, this is all like, I don't know actually anything about this, but this is why we're talking about it, I guess, to see what everyone sort of just, how people make sense of it. Because you have to at some point, or even if you don't make sense of it, you make peace with it.
Yeah. I've even had out-of-body experiences. I've had a few of those where I felt like I left my body, like my energy, my spirit left my body. When I was younger, it happened. It would happen a lot more than now. But yeah, I mean, I can tell you stories, and or like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, any of you two, where you're laying in your bed and you feel like someone jumps on you and is holding you down. I don't know if you ever had that experience, but I've had that happen too.
I think that might be like, did you ever see that documentary about sleep paralysis? They literally,
Yes.
like, it's a documentary, but they film it like it's a horror movie because sleep paralysis is supposed to be horrifying. And I mean, I've had definitely nightmares in my lifetime, but I don't think I've ever had one where I'm like, I woke up and like it was clear as day and I'm sitting in my room and like there's someone else in the room with me. Like when you were first telling your other story, Rajee, where it turns out you guys were robbed, like my initial thought was, I was like, oh, I wonder if like maybe it was a night terror. But then you were saying how no, like that's why the police were here, like we got robbed. So you know, I think about stuff like that too.
And I just can't help to think like if my father had waken up and he saw those two strange men in our room, and you know that whole thing of like what would have went down if they would have been fighting, or who knows. So I do believe that in that moment I saved. Well, when I say I saved my family, like by not being a typical baby and crying and screaming for my mom and my dad to wake up, you know, and going back to sleep, that was like such a divine moment for us. But yeah, and there's there's another incident that happened with me. It was when I was in the middle of transitioning, and people were being really, really mean to me. And I just felt I had an incident with some guys, some thugs, where they were calling me all these horrible names and like they were going to attack me. And I just was really feeling low. And I've had my brutal attacks. Both of you know that. And I'm sure some of the audience remember when I talked about that. But anyway, I get home and I'm in my bed and I'm just crying. And I'm like, I just feel like I can't go on anymore, that I don't feel like I'm a part of this world. And I was just boohoo crying and I was pleading with God. I'm like, God, you know, why am I like this? Like, why do I have to be this way? Why can't I be normal? And I'm normal. You get it, normal now. I mean, I know that sounds crazy now, but back then it was like, oh God, like, why do I have to be trans? And I was just pleading and crying, and all of a sudden, a calmness came over me, and I heard a voice, and the voice was strong but gentle at the same time. It was so weird. It was clear and strong, but so sweet and gentle at the same time. And the voice said, "Balance, my child." And as soon as I heard those words, it was like a floodgate of information went into my mind. That's right. That's why there's gay people and lesbian people and trans people. The world is a balancing act. Nature is a balancing act. And so that's why someone like me is born, and someone like, you know, Joseph and Mickey are born, and it like all kind of started to click. I was like, it's one big balancing act. And that's why we have this thing, this diversity in nature. And so then I started to feel myself lift from my body. And I dream all the time, but this was not, I mean, if you want to call it a dream, you can. It wasn't a typical dream. I feel like it was a spiritual experience. And all of a sudden, I'm floating in the galaxies. And what I've learned since then is the galactic realm is like the fourth dimension. So we're in the third, and then the next dimension is the galactic realm. And I could see the stars, and I looked back and I saw planet Earth. And in that moment, I felt so whole and complete. I didn't feel any sort of lack. I just felt whole and complete and loved. And I remember looking at the earth, and I had no attachment to earth at all. Like no attachment to food or loved ones. Or I just felt like I didn't have any sort of desire or connection or attachment where I was holding on to the earth like, oh God, I have to stay. And I looked out into the galaxies and I was looking at the stars, and all of a sudden, a beautiful white light appeared in front of me. And it was so beautiful and it was so bright. And all of a sudden, it was almost like it knew everything about me, you know, and how I was feeling and everything, my emotions and how I feel and knew my life's journey up until that point. And all of a sudden, I started to be showered in a beautiful rainbow. So from the white light, it was showering me in a rainbow. So I was in the middle of this beautiful rainbow, reds, purples, greens, yellow. I mean, it was so vibrant. And I remember looking back at planet Earth and then saying to myself, I'm ready to go. And I reached my arm out to the light and I felt a gentle tap in the center of they call this the third eye. And I started to drift back down into my body. And let me tell you, like I said before, I dream all the time, but this was more than a dream. And it was the thing that I needed to give me hope and to give me the will and the stamina to get to the next day. Because at that point, I was ready to go. I mean, I just was ready to leave the earth, and I just didn't feel like I belonged here, and I just needed to go. So I think about that, and I said, my God, you know, if I had given up and, like, let's say, tried to commit suicide, all the wonderful things that have happened since that time, like, I've lived so much life. And so, anyway, that's another story. I had to share it.
I think, to be honest with you, what both of you brought up complement each other perfectly with this entire topic. I didn't plan on us discussing this at all, which is part of the reason why when you have a live show, you never know what's going to happen, especially with people that are very unique. And whenever we do these shows, we don't edit them, by the way. For the people who are watching at home, welcome. Thank you for watching us. If you might have started the show and then walked away from the computer and then come back, it's a really good, juicy show. But the fact is that we could probably do an entire show just on spiritual ghost stories, all of that, to be honest, that we have so many stories and out of body experiences, like what you're talking about, Rajee, and myself. And the part that's frustrating for me is when I go to sleep, I see all of my dead family members and we argue and bicker and fight with each other just like we used to when we were alive. And then I'm always back at the same house where we all lived. And we're doing stuff like, you know, cooking food or taking out the trash or whatever. It's completely mundane, totally unnecessary things. And people just pop up. Sometimes people that are alive pop up. Most of the time, the people that are dead pop up and we continue our fight, whatever the dream was before. But I understand what you're talking about with the floating stuff, because in my dreams, I'm always floating, which I love. Sometimes I'm like floating and I'm standing up like really slowly. And then other times I'm like flying like Superman. And sometimes I'm looking at the planet, like what you're talking about. And then sometimes I'm at another planet with like multiple suns and multiple moons. I'm like, what the hell's going on? You never know where you're going to end up when you do those out of little body experiences. And then sometimes I'm on our planet where I'm in a place where I don't understand the words that I'm looking at, because it's like in French or it's in German or it's in Russian. I'm like, what the heck am I supposed to do with that? I don't know what to say. I don't know where the heck that I'm at. So, but it's those out of body experiences. You don't really have control over it. But the important part is that you got that message exactly when you needed it. And just like Mick got his messages when he needed it, there's definitely energy. And actually it correlates to what our next topic is with COVID for my segment. What you were mentioning, Mick, and what you were mentioning, Rajee, is about energy and how bodies and spirits give off vibrations. And believe it or not, because of COVID and cities being shut down around the world, seismometers, I don't know if that's the right word, seismograph, things that like track earthquakes and everything else, everything cut down to half of what the normal noise and vibration level was. First, it started in Europe. I should say China, then Europe, and then the United States. And it was as all of the governments shut down and people were at home, there was less pollution, there was less noise, there was less vibration. So by you or me or everyone else walking around, we create our energy and it follows us. Just like, I don't know if either of you have been to the 9/11 memorial in New York City, but I have with my partner. It's a very beautiful, but also sad experience, knowing that you're somewhere where 2,755 people died all at once. And looking at that reflection pool, you can feel it when you walk. You can feel the energy that's still there. And this is 5 years ago that we were there. So it's one of those things where you talked about energy. All of us have talked about it. And I definitely think that it is something that follows us on this dimension and wherever we go to. But I'm happy that that we actually all talked about this topic. So I want to give you the introduction. I should tell you about the COVID numbers. We're going to talk about some serious stuff now. And unfortunately for you, Mick, California, with 39.51 million people, officially has the most COVID cases in the United States. So you have 457,015 total cases. And the total deaths that are there are 8,438. Total tests done are 7 million tests. So you guys are doing a really good thing with testing, and so is Florida. You made a comment that you're waiting for your test results to come back. I'm not a really big person in reference to going to get it done personally. I don't know if Rajee has gotten it, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not around other people, but I understand that you're around more people, so it makes sense that you would maybe possibly need to get it done. Pretty much at home all the time, but that's your number one. And Florida, unfortunately for Rajee and me, just usurped New York. We are number two. So our COVID numbers are 423,000 cases, and we are close to 6,000 deaths with 3 million tests done. And then in Ohio, the positive cases are 84,000 and 3,000 deaths and total tests 1 million. So when I look at all these numbers talking about the COVID stuff, what I'm concerned with is that the projection models only project 3 months out. Like when it first started in March, they projected 3 months. Now we're in July. They're projecting till November. My caveat is, why can we not project 3 years out? Because in 1918, with the Spanish flu, it took 3 years for the Spanish flu to be nullified and no longer exist. And now they're talking about that this COVID is not going to be something that ever goes away. So it seems like lip service that they're doing, to be honest with you. It's not real projection. They're basically just, okay, so what, like election day, then COVID's just gonna disappear? That's what the projections are. So it just goes to November 1st. So, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm still sticking with my original numbers, Rajee, unfortunately. I haven't done the numbers for California, but I will, and I'll do them for Ohio also as well, because I'm still sticking with a really grim number. By the end of all of this, I think 60,000 people will die in Florida out of the 21.48 million people. We're only at 6,000 right now. But that means we're 1/10 of the way there. And that's really scary considering that it's just been 6 months that we're into it. So I'm not an epidemiologist, and I'm smart, but and I'm not really good with math, but I'm kind of good with math. So that's what the COVID story is. And I don't know what else more to say above and beyond that, besides reading the names of 12 people. I'm doing it every episode that we're having, and I think that it's necessary. So I think I'll do a lot better this time. Paul Simconis died on March 18th. William Phillips died on March 19th. Donald Hawes died on March 19th. Joseph Richard died on March 20th. Carolyn North died on March 20th. Thomas Iannucci died on March 21st. Elfriede von Holtz died on March 21st. John Jenkins died on March 21st. Christine Armour died on March 21st. Luis Soto Rodriguez died on March 21st. Leonora Thorner died on March 21st. And Edward Herford died on March 21st. If you want to pull up all the information, you can go ahead and do that by going to floridacovidvictims.com. That's floridacovidvictims.com. Next week, I will read another 10 or 12 names. Unfortunately, it will probably take years before we get through all the names just for Florida. And I will definitely be bringing the names to light for every other state. I'm going to continue to do that as much as I can, to just put the name with the actual death. It's not just a number. Over to you, Rajee.
Well, you know, I think because for a lot of people, this virus is uncharted territory, in the sense that none of us have lived through this sort of thing. I mean, there's probably very few people that were here in 1918, but I'm just saying, like, you know, for the most part, most of us haven't experienced this before. So I don't know if it's wishful thinking that they're giving a projection of 3 months, hoping that there'll be a vaccine, because from what I hear, the pharmaceutical companies are racing to beat one another for this vaccine. So I don't know if it's wishful thinking or if it's strategic in the sense that they don't want people to panic, because it's been 6 months and people are already going out of their minds. And if you tell people that this is going to go on for 3 years, I don't know if a lot of people would be able to cope with that, and maybe some people would spiral down. So like incrementally, like, okay, then when we get to November, they'll give another projected date. And so, you know, you wonder, like, maybe it's a combination of both. Maybe it's wishful thinking that a vaccine will be developed, and also strategic in the sense that we don't want people to panic and get too crazy over it. So I don't know. I'm just trying to be as safe as possible. Interestingly enough, I don't know how accurate the numbers are, because a friend of mine shared with me, he told me that his friend's sister has it, and she's had it for like a couple months now, because she originally got tested and then was told to quarantine, and she did that. And then when she went back for another test, she was still positive. And he was telling me that she's been back like 2 or 3 times and she's still positive. And he told me that each time she goes back, that test counts as another, like it's added to the numbers, even though it's one person. And when he told me that, I thought, wow, like, I don't know how accurate his information is, but if that's the case, then you have to wonder, like, how accurate are all the numbers. So that's
I'm actually happy that you bring that up, and it brings up a really good point, Rajee, because I think it's really important for the retesting, because someone can be okay today and then have an incident and be around someone and then get positive, and then be okay 14 days later and be negative, and then the next time be positive. So I understand what you're saying, and I completely agree with you. So in the instances where you're saying that it's positive, 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 and it counts as a new test each time, it should count as a new test because it's a new positive test each time. By the same token, all the negative tests that are coming back, a person might be negative, 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 negative. You can't think that it's just the positive ones that are being tracked, because the negative ones are also being tracked as well. And the difference between doing one this way and one that way is you have to do both. One week, someone could be positive. The next week, they might be negative. And then you also have to think also with that, how many of those tests are actually 100% accurate. So I would rather that people get tested, even though I'm not going to do it. And I'm not saying that it's bad to do it, Mick, or that it's bad to do it, Rajee. If either of you do it, it's not something that I'm going to do. But the fact is that I think it's good for people to get tested if they think they are at risk to have it.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is in regards to numbers, if each time you go back, you're counting it as a positive
new
test, a new one, then how are the numbers correct? Because if you say 20 positive cases, but 5 of them is one person, that's a little
correct.
That's a little misleading. You're thinking when you hear 20 positive cases, that's 20 people. 20 people. And that's what I'm talking about.
I understand what you're saying, Rajee, but what I'm saying is that 20 positive tests with one person could be 20 negative tests with another person.
Oh,
for your instance. So yeah, but what I'm saying is that both of them should be tracked. Mm-hmm. You can't just give a one test to one person and that one person just counts as one number, one time. Each test has to be tracked and monitored in order to know what the correct positive rate is, because it's increasing.
Okay, I understand that, but then when you hear 50,000 positive cases, it could be 30,000 people. That's my point. Like the 50,000, that's the point I'm trying to make. If it's 50,000 positive cases, it could be 30,000 people, because it's maybe there's people that are retesting positive. You get it?
Right. I get that. I get that and understand that. The part that I find that's really disturbing is that one person can test 5 times and still be positive the entire time, and they're still possibly out interacting with other people, which is a horrible danger to everybody.
Well, from her, according to him, she's been quarantined for a couple months now. And on top of it, when she finally tests negative, she has to wait 3 weeks to then go get another test before she can be allowed to go back into the workforce or to go back into like regular society. So I don't know.
It's a scary hot mess, Rajee. It really is for us. And for Mick, I'm sure he's ready to talk because he's got the worst numbers in the United States. Mick, what do you got to say?
Yeah. Well, I definitely feel that you should go out and get tested if you can. Obviously, if you are like, I have not left the house, I have not gone to the grocery store, I've not done this, I've been getting delivery, like there's a certain level of like, at some point you have to tell yourself, okay, I'm probably okay. I shouldn't be using up some of these resources that other people do need. Because, I mean, out here at Dodger Stadium, lines have been up to 6 hours long to get results. And that's ridiculous, because you think about people who probably have to be at work, or they have to watch their kids, or they have other things to do, and they have to sit in line because the government can't get its act together. As for current cases and whatnot, and that cases are counted more than once, all I know is that I was curious about that just in general, because that was something that I feel like I've heard brought up before, but I haven't really done enough research just on my own. But I know that literally there's an NBC 15 news update that comes when you search for our COVID county tests, or our COVID-19 tests counted twice. According to health officials, at least the ones in Madison, Dane County, Wisconsin, which I'm assuming are doing the same things everywhere. I would like to think that there's a universal kind of response. They're saying that your positive COVID test won't count more than once. So I'm hoping, and chances probably are, because there are tons of people getting sick, I don't think that the numbers are necessarily being inflated. I don't think that double positive tests are being tacked on to one another, because I think that healthcare officials, that's the thing, like, there are people in healthcare who want to see these numbers go down. So why would they want to put someone who has already tested positive for COVID, like, on it again? And I feel like when you get your COVID test, if I remember correctly, like, when you're marking things down or when you sign up for your test, like, you mentioned, like, are you COVID positive? Or, like, have you come, like, they ask you things like, have you come in contact with someone? So they'll know when they're doing the test, they'll be like, yeah, you still have it. Or, like, no, you don't. So I don't think that double counting the tests are really anything that's contributing to a problem, because, like I said, officials want these numbers to go down. And if they are able to get these numbers down, they're going to do that. Like, there's no reason to have these numbers up. People don't want to hear that there's more COVID cases happening. Nobody wants to hear that, despite what conspiracy theorists might tell you about people wanting to wreck the economy for Donald Trump. People don't care that much. People aren't literally going to unleash a disease to ruin the economy, to ruin Donald Trump's chances at election. Like, that is not, like, that's ridiculous. And so, yeah, my 2 cents is get tested, continue staying home, continue distancing, because that is what needs to be done. And quite frankly, there are more than enough people out there who aren't going to listen to me. So if you're kind of on the fence about whether or not you want to go to a restaurant, I'm going to tell you, actually, I'm not going to tell you, I'm going to push you to the side of the fence that is on the side of stay home, don't go anywhere, wear a mask if you have to go anywhere. Getting takeout from your favorite restaurant is literally not going to be any different than you sitting down there. I swear to God, the alcohol will be cheaper that you drink at home. It's just, it's a better thing to do. So
I agree with you, Mick, and I want to welcome Marty Allen from Big Daddy's Stock Tips from the Hood.
Hey,
What do you
Big
got to
Daddy.
tell us? What do you got to tell us, Marty?
Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome everybody to my Southern Exposure. Glad to be joining you guys here on your show this Sunday evening. Hey Rajee, looking hot and smoking as ever. How you doing?
Oh,
Everybody,
thank you. Flattery will get you everywhere.
welcome to the show. Well, let me tell you listeners real quick, you listeners and viewers of my Southern Exposure. I do a show every Wednesday, noon to 1 o'clock here on the Rogue Radio Network, rogueradionetwork.com. Big Daddy Stock Tips from the Hood. I always tell people I was born in the hood, but the hood was not born in me. So now there's a couple of stocks coming up for the week that, and remember the other thing about Big Daddy Stock Tips from the Hood. I never ever tell anybody to buy a particular stock or advise anyone to buy a particular stock. I only tell you what stocks look interesting and attractive, and just like Rajee, sometimes delicious to me. Okay, so our first one for the week. Our first one for the week is SoftBank. Now, SoftBank, if people are out there who are not familiar with the stock market world, SoftBank supposedly is a company that makes 90% of the chips that go into smartphones. Now, when you think about smartphones all over the world, how many are out there now? How many that come out every day, every year? Apple always comes out with a stock with a new smartphone. So now they got SoftBank. SoftBank wants to put out an IPO to gather up some more revenue, okay? So now I say to myself, ooh, now that always piques Big Daddy's interest. I said, ooh, I like that. That stock looks good to me. But then I'm always reading, okay, CNBC and everything, Financial Watch, and I see that NVIDIA, now, if you know NVIDIA is a company that basically makes video monitors for the computer. And every computer that Joe is on, my Puddin' Pop, and everybody else, there's also they make video monitors for gaming systems, video cards for gaming systems. Now, if Nvidia comes out and says, we want to buy SoftBank, don't worry about going for an IPO, SoftBank. We want to buy you. So then I say to myself, now, ooh, that looks attractive to me. So I'm going to keep an eye on that for all of you listeners and viewers of My Southern Exposure, as well as Big Daddy Stockton from the Hood. Now, let me tell you about the second one. The second one is, of course, it's been my road dog since I started doing my investing. It's been my Seattle slew over the last few months, and that's Tesla. I've been telling people about Tesla. Now, remember, I'm not telling you to buy Tesla. I'm just saying that Tesla looks like Rajee. It looks delicious to me. It has made me a lot of money, okay? So now I tell people on last Wednesday's show, I said, look out, people, because Tesla is coming out with an earnings report on Thursday, that next morning. Well, actually, it was at 5:30 p.m. on the day of my show, but it was after the stock market closed. And I heard some rumors that Tesla was going to come out and say that their Q2 earnings report, Q2 means quarterly two. There's 4 quarters in a year, and every 3 months they come out with a quarterly report and say, we lost money or we made money. I said Tesla was going to come out and say that they made money, which means that the stock was going to look like Rajee and look delicious to me. So, of course, I do the show on Wednesday. The show is over on Wednesday. And then what do I hear about 5:15, 5:30 in the evening? They say that Tesla has not only made money, but they have made money in 4 quarters in a row, which means, guess what, people of My Southern Exposure and Big Daddy Stockton from the Hood? That means that Tesla is now eligible to go into the S&P 500. I said, that means that's interesting. That's attractive. That's like Rajee. That looks delicious to me. So what did I do? I bought me more Tesla, and now I'm gearing up because now I'm hearing September 22nd is battery day for Tesla. You say to yourself, what's battery day? Well, Tesla, for people who don't know, make electric cars. So now they're supposed to come out with, I'm hearing rumors again. Now, this is just a rumor. I'm not telling you to buy the stock. I'm only telling you that it looks interesting, attractive, and sometimes like Rajee, delicious to me. So now they supposedly got a battery coming out on September 22nd that says that they are making a 1 million mile battery. That means that you would never have to recharge your battery again if you buy a Tesla car. This is just a story I'm hearing, okay? A lot of people didn't want to take trips to long distances because they didn't know where they were going to go to try to get a battery or recharge the battery that they have. But now they ain't got to worry about it, supposedly, because September 2nd is battery day. I'm going to keep an eye on that for you listeners about My Southern Exposure and Big Daddy Stock Tips from the Hood. Lastly but not least, the biotech stocks are looking fantastic. I've been telling people about the biotech stock. That means the stock companies that are racing to the finish line to make a vaccine for COVID-19. There's a couple of them out there in this country that have been battling back and forth, trying to make it to the finish line so they can get FDA approval and get them mass produced out to the world. And that would be huge. I would honestly love to invest in somebody who comes out with a vaccine for this horrible disease. There's Moderna. It's mRNA on the stock ticker. mRNA. They're getting close to the finish line. They got Catalent that they've partnered up with that they said if we get an FDA approval at Moderna, then Catalent, CTLT on the stock market, is going to be our mass producer of all these millions of vaccines that we need to get out to the public, that we need to get out to the world. There's Novavax. There's NVAX on the stock market. Novavax. They've got a product that's coming to the finish line, trying to get FDA approval by the end of this year, if not the first of next year. BioNTech is a German company. BioNTech, BNTX, on the stock market. They have joined up with who? I look on the sidelines, I'm reading, I see something that looks delicious like Rajee. It says they are partnering up with Pfizer. I said, Pfizer? Oh my goodness, that means that they know something. So if Pfizer is gearing up with BioNTech to get a vaccine to the FDA approval to get it to the country, I am interested in that. Then there's Johnson & Johnson. There's AstraZeneca. There's so many. But I always tell you right here on Big Daddy Stock Tips from the Hood and My Southern Exposure, I never ever tell you what stocks to buy. I only tell you what stocks looks interesting and attractive and delicious like my girl Rajee to me. Big Daddy Stock Tips from the Hood. Every Wednesday at noon on the Rogue Radio Network. Go to rogueradionetwork.com, and that'll give you your links to my Facebook channel and my YouTube channel. Big Daddy Stocks It from the hood. Show me the money, Puddin' Pop.
Thank you so much, Brown Sugar. I greatly appreciate it.
When you talk to me like that, I get all mushy inside, Puddin' Pop.
I know. I was getting a little jealous because you were paying too much attention to Rajee there. For a second,
I love her. You know me. I love me a delicious, voluptuous girl, man. Ooh.
I know. All right, over to Mick with your segment. Thank you so much, Marty, from Big Stock Tips from the Hood. We greatly appreciate you calling in today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
You got it. Love you guys. Take care.
Yeah, you too, Marty. Honestly, like me listening to Marty speak about the stock market, I'm not a numbers guy. I don't know how that thing works, but like listening to your voice talk about it is enough to make me consider paying more attention to it because I'm at least entertained. Otherwise, I just feel like I'm looking at numbers that go up and down in percentages. So I can't say that always really appeals to me, but if there's a charismatic presence on the other end of that, that might actually give me some pause and make me pay a little bit more attention.
Do you remember? Do you remember me mentioning this to you a couple of episodes ago about this, about the stock tips? I said you're gonna love listening to Marty. Yes, because we talked about the stock market and everything else. You're like, oh, I don't have any interest. I said, just wait till Big Daddy talks.
Oh, I mean, I still personally, I'm probably still not going to invest in the stock market because I don't have the assets. I don't have the assets for it right now. That's just my thing. And I still need to do more research on my own.
Well, the best place to tune in is to the tips on Wednesdays from noon to 12:30. And then also here as well. Okay. So apparently Rajee has gotten off the call. And Mick is going to take a little break, Marty. I am going to talk about a couple of companies until my people come back. And I greatly appreciate if you want to stick around. So I got to tell you about WeGo LLC. It is a local company that operates here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And it also services Wilton Manors area, as well as Middle River Terrace and Oakland Park area as well. If you pre-plan your trip with them, you can make your life a lot easier during these stress-filled times. If you need a ride to or from work, or if you need your grocery shopping done, let's say you got some dirty laundry like most of us do, there's no contact, no touch options that can make your life a lot easier. And if you do need to ride to or from work, the drivers will be wearing face masks and shields. In addition, after each passenger in the car, they'll be sanitizing as well. You can visit www.wegolllc.app to learn more. I suggest you plan at least 24 hours in advance because it is subject to availability. Don't forget, wegolllc.app. Contact them today. You will not regret it. If you are looking for a cleaning solution in Wilton Manors, Middle River Terrace, or Fort Lauderdale, do I have the answer? Yeah, I do. Trustworthy Cleaners. They've been cleaning houses, vacation rentals, pools, and boats or cars for over 10 years, and they have some new procedures and protective measures as well. They're open and ready to serve you. Now, they have no contact options to keep you and their employees safe. You can email them directly at trustworthycleaners33304@gmail.com. That's trustworthycleaners33304@gmail.com. If you are looking to celebrate something special and you live in my neighborhood, then I suggest that you contact the Lovely Bake Shop. It's located on 13th Street, just east of 4th Avenue. We just had a small little birthday party, and they came up with a great cake. They're not cheap, but they are definitely high quality. So if you want to make a special event tasty, I suggest that you contact them directly. That's 954-715-2050. 954-715-2050. That's www.lovelybakeshop.com. Their address is 603 Northeast 13th Street, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and 33304. Tell them that My Southern Exposure sent ya. So we're going to see who's going first. Rajee is back. Okay, so Rajee, give us your update. People want to know what's going on in Rajee land, and you're going to give Mick a couple seconds so we can have a couple of pieces of food.
Yeah, I'm hungry too, but I don't know what happened to my darn iPad. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, I'm back. So I just got to say, first of all, I enjoyed thoroughly Big Daddy. Oh my God. You know, because like I was saying on, I think it was last week's show, the stock exchange and all of that has been so foreign to me. And what I love about Big Daddy is that he breaks it down and he makes it, for me, he makes it more doable, maybe for lack of a better word or phrase. And so I even jotted some stuff down. So thank you, Big Daddy. And of course, not to mention all of the compliments. I was blushing over here. Anyway, as far as the trans update, I'm going to let Joseph in a minute give the number to Crime Stoppers and the information, but they still have not found the murderer of Bree Black, and it's quite disappointing because, you know, to think someone can do that and just get away with it. I don't know though. Karma, I'm a firm believer in karma. Karma can be a bitch, and so it'll probably catch up to this person eventually. But I also wanted to bring up something in regards to America, and I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked to learn this. I saw it on Sunday morning this morning. I always watch Sunday morning. I love that show because they cover all these different topics, and I always think it's so like they do pretty eclectic topics. Like they'll go from covering some artists in LA to then talking about something with the country going on politically. So, oh, I think I'm gone again. Am I gone?
No, you're still here. No,
I'm
you're
here.
still here.
Okay.
You're good. You're still, well, maybe you're not now. You were just here 2 seconds ago. It might be a little bit of a delay. So, Mickey, if you are ready to talk, then go ahead and do it. And Rajee will chime in as soon as she's ready.
Definitely. So this week, for my music update, I just wanted to talk really, really quickly about an artist who released a mixtape on Friday. It is her first release on RCA Records. Her name is Flo Milli. That's FLOMILLI. I sent an image of the project to Joseph. Hopefully he'll be able to share it on his screen in a few minutes. But the project is called, well, it's by Flo Milli. Again, she's a rapper out of Alabama. And the project is called Ho, Why Is You Here? Now, it is exactly as fun as it sounds. It is a fantastic mixtape. It is a great encapsulation of the type of flow and intonation that she has, which quite literally to me sound very, very fresh and very, very new. In fact, I had written last year for this website that I write for called Pop Matters last year about why I thought that she was one of the most exciting artists of 2019, because she only released like 2 or 3 songs last year, and all of them were hits. They were huge on TikTok. She went viral on Spotify. She went viral on one of Spotify's viral charts. She was number 2, I believe, on that chart, which is a huge deal, especially for someone as young as she is. She was born on January 9th, 2000. So she is only 20 years old this year, and last year at the young age of 19 was tearing up the music industry. Her music is fantastic. She's got a fantastic flow, and Ho, Why Is You Here is the album that I think was maybe one of the most important ones released on Friday. We also had a client as well. Her name is Jessie Lanza. If you're also looking for some great music, she also came out with an album that day. Again, this is a plug through the company that I work for. But again, the album is called Jessie Lanza's All the Time. But as I said, I'm talking about Flo Milli. And hopefully, like I said, Joseph will be able to show a photo of the project if that's possible. But she is, like I said, she's very, very young. So she has I think that she has just has a great future ahead of her. She's already done so much. The songs that I recommend from the project specifically are Pockets. Well, Pockets Bigger is a great interlude. But Beef, Flo Milli Mix, that was kind of the song that took off for her and is pretty much a good place to start. And it's also pretty much the start of the album, so you might as well just start listening right there. And May I, which is track number 9. That is the song that I've seen people tweeting about. That was the song that as I was listening to the mixtape, which I loved the whole thing, but that was when because I had it playing in the background, May I was the moment where I went onto my computer and I was like, okay, let me see what this song is called, because I haven't been paying attention maybe as much to the other titles. I need to know what this one is. And all of it is fantastic. It is the music that you want to listen to, like when you would be like hanging out with your friends, like going out, having a good time, which unfortunately you can't do now, but you can still have a good time with Flo Milli at your home. Stream, buy, purchase, support Flo Milli's Ho, Why Is You Here. It is a fantastic mixtape. I cannot recommend it enough. And yeah, support Flo Milli. As they say, Flo Milli shit. Get into it.
Oh my goodness, that's so cute. And I apologize, but I did not get the actual image. I did get the text message through Zoom, so I'm curious where the actual photo went to, but we will figure out how to make it work better next time. Unfortunately, Rajee appears to be having some technical difficulties. I'm going to recap what she talked about and give out the information, and also put up the photo of Bree Black for everyone while I read the information. Hopefully by the time I get back, Rajee will be back online and able to bid adieu to all of our viewers. It's just going to take me a couple seconds, so I greatly appreciate your patience. Basically, Bree Black was murdered on Friday night, the 3rd of July. And what happened was she was murdered in front of her home. I'm just putting up a photo now. Greatly appreciate your patience. The BSO deputies responded to a report where there was a shooting located at 10:18 p.m. on the grounds at 244 Northwest 12th Street in Pompano Beach, Florida. That was on July 3rd, Friday, July 3rd. Pompano Beach Fire Rescue personnel responded to the scene and pronounced Bree Black deceased at approximately 10:28 p.m., 10 minutes later, according to BSO press release. There's Rajee. Local advocate Tatiana Braxton said that the BSO is being very respectful in identifying her as a transgender woman. That being said, the deceased was also known to friends and on Facebook as Bree Black, but the BSO is honoring the request by family to identify her as Nook, Cameron Breon. Anyone with information regarding this case is asked to contact Detective Louis Bonhomme. I mess up his name every week. I apologize. I don't know how to say it. It's a lot of vowels and consonants, and it's annoying. But I just can't figure out how to say it, so I apologize. 954-321-4377 is his number. I'm just going to say Detective Lewis. Detective Lewis at 954-321-4377, and I apologize for not saying your name properly. If you wish to remain anonymous, you can also contact Broward Crime Stoppers. They're offering a $3,000 reward, 954-493-TIPS. are the letters, but that actually are the following numbers, 8477. So that's Broward Crime Stoppers for a $3,000 reward, 954-493-8477. Or online, you can visit browardcrimestoppers.org. I believe that the fabulous
I'm back.
Rajee is back. She's
yes,
back.
I'm back. Oh my God. I tell you, technical difficulties, honey.
Aye.
Anyway,
Aye.
what were you saying?
I was just saying oy vey.
Oy vey, I know. So anyway, did you all hear what I said about the 2 million Americans that don't have running water?
No.
Yeah, that's what I was absolutely shocked about today. On Sunday morning, they covered it, and there are literally communities here in America where the people do not have running water. And I mean, water is such a basic necessity when it comes to us humans. I mean, for, of course, grooming, hygiene, cooking, so many things that we use water for. And to think that people have to actually walk to get water here in America in 2020. And we're talking about places like there's a town in Delaware. I mean, and there's a town in Virginia. And I'm like, oh my God, because this is something I think most Americans take for granted. You get up, you go to the sink, you turn on the faucet, and the water comes out, So I found it very, very shocking and quite interesting because, we're always thinking about people that don't have water. Most people would refer to like people that are in countries like quote unquote third world countries that don't have running water, but Americans, 2 million of them.
That's a lot of. That is a lot of people, Rajee. How did I don't even know how to wrap my head around that. So you're talking about residents in the United States. Are they spread out all across the United States, or is this in just like a regional area that they don't have water?
It's in pockets. It's in pockets. One of the major places, and I forgot the name of the reservation. It's an Indian reservation, and they do not have running water, and it covers actually a few states. And I'm trying to see. Let me see if I can find their name.
Oh, I'm pulling it up right now, honey. You keep talking. I'm going to find it. Please continue.
Yeah. So, it just was like, it really surprised me. And let me tell you, they were able to, there's an organization that's working to try and, fix this problem. And, a lot of the people said it's just that the government doesn't care. It's in communities. A lot of these communities are communities where I guess there's not much going on, quote unquote, like the lady in Virginia. It used to be a mining community, but now there's like no mining there, and a lot of shops have closed and stuff. And so she literally said that, we're not important to America anymore, and so we've been forgotten. And so this organization that's working to try to fix this problem, they did manage to put tanks on some of these, for some of these families on the Indian reservation. They put tanks in front of their homes where they just have to fill it up like once a month, but it literally gave them running water. And you should have seen the children when they like held them up to the sink and they turned it on and the water came out. They were like so amazed. And I'm thinking, this is something that most of us just take for granted. I get up in the morning and I count on being able to take a nice hot bubble bath. I mean, so I tell you, it was really shocking to me.
I didn't realize that at all, and I'm pulling up the story. I just didn't want you to have to pay attention to this part because you already did it. Apparently, Detroit still is having problems with water.
Yeah. If you do 2 million, if you Google 2
I did it.
million
I did a
Americans?
search. Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yep, I did the search, and it mentions Sweetwater Navajo Nation. That
Yeah.
might be the one that you're talking about. That they don't have any running water, and it's 300,000 people, and it shows basically how they're living. But you're talking about 2 million people across the United States, and part of that is the Navajo Nation, the country's largest Indian reservation, where water has been held scarce, and about 1/3 of the population, 300,000, don't even have water to flush a toilet, which is absurd. We actually, you know this, we collect rainwater at our house in buckets, and we use it to water our plants. And sometimes if I want to fill up the pool with water, I'll take the rainwater and put it in the pool instead of running water, or instead of using well water. Not to sound stupid, but I mean, it doesn't make sense to utilize the water that comes out of the taps, partially because of what they mentioned also as well, that a lot of the pipes have lead poisoning and all the other trace elements that are inside of the water. And I've noticed also as well, because you brought this topic up, that myself and my partner have been talking about this for a while, where if you get they have test kits, actually, you can get them from the home handyman stores. I don't want to mention either one of them because I'm not a big person about huge corporations, but go to whichever home handyman store that you have. You can get a little testing kit and test your water. And from what I understand, there are trace drugs and plastic and chemicals in all of the tap water that's coming out through your pipes, besides the lead that's traversing through your pipes and everything else also as well. But for those of us here, it's easy for us to be able to get water. I mean, even if there is no water, you maybe, go to a canal, and then you could figure out a way to desalinate. I don't know if that's a correct term, to get rid of the salt out of the water. There's a lot of different ways that you can actually make water just from humidity. Maybe people don't know about how to do it, but there are options available. Something as simple as using a glass bowl and putting it upside down on top of a cup, and then another bowl underneath it. You can actually just collect condensation from heat. A lot of people don't realize that it is that simple, but you can do that. You can collect dew, which would basically be water. Or you could also go to a river. They actually have these little, what look like a test tube, and you can take all the chemicals out also as well, with charcoal and a lot of other things. But that's just a horrible, crazy story.
I know.
Rajee.
I was shocked.
And then there's so this is the part that I don't get. So there's some places in the United States that there's too much water, and that it creates flooding. And then there's other places in the United States where there isn't any water. Why is there not some kind of a system where they can take the water from where it's too much and it can go to where it needs to be?
I will give you a very straightforward, easy answer right there. Racism. For one thing, if you think about the people who don't have access to water right now, it's people like the Navajo Nation. It's people in Flint, Michigan, places that are predominantly where indigenous people live, where black people live. That is one very, very easy reason as to why that is. Obviously, there's other factors that come into play. I mean, the Navajo Nation is near, I believe it's in Arizona, New Mexico. That's in a desert. So on top of that, it's on top of the fact that the government is probably not doing anything to help them, because I believe the Navajo Nation was also one of the hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, which if you don't have access to water, that is going to impact you a lot more, because you cannot hydrate the people who are sick. But I mean, when it comes to something like Flint, Michigan, all they need, what they need to do there is they need to literally replace all of the plumbing there. And yes, that'd be a costly job, but you could literally take a small percentage out of the Pentagon's defense spending budget and use it to save people's lives from poisoning in Flint, Michigan. And the government just refuses to do that. And it's not as if Flint is some random phenomenon, or that no one remember, or that it's not been trending for many, many years. It is one of the, I feel like I see people mentioning it all the time on our timelines. Like, it's a very sad, stagnant truth that people in Flint still don't have clean running water, and the entire world knows that.
Well, and actually, to be honest with you, Mick, what you just brought up, and Rajee also, because you both brought up really two good points, and I want to remind people about two different projects that were the biggest of the top 10. They put the Hoover Dam in and stopped the river, and that water was redirected and actually made, believe it or not, Los Angeles, California, a possibility way back when. That's where that water comes from. It's from the Hoover Dam and several pump systems. It was one of the largest projects in the United States. And in addition to that also as well, they also reversed the flow of the Chicago River. Instead of it going into, I don't know which lake it is, instead of it going into that lake, they reverse the flow of it so that it goes downriver instead. So it's not a matter of that can't be done. It's exactly what you just said. They don't want to do it, and it's, I believe, for sinister reasons, and it obviously needs to change, but we have to obviously keep talking about it, to keep bringing it up, and it's a horrible thing. It's just absolutely ludicrous and ridiculous that 2 million people in the United States don't have water. I can't imagine that. But I mean, I really can't.
Even like in places like in Appalachia, you hear about people who, like, people always make fun of people in Appalachia being like, oh, they have terrible teeth because of meth and everything. And it's like, yes, opioids have decimated those populations. But the other fact of the matter is that there were stories not too long ago, and I'm sure this is probably still the same. It is cheaper to buy things like Mountain Dew than it is water and baby formula at grocery stores in certain parts of Appalachia. So you have mothers who, well, not just mothers, parents in general, who have to feed their kids and have to pay for a family, and they don't have the money to pay for like anything extra. So they're giving their kids Mountain Dew. And then people are like, oh, well, like, why do they have such terrible teeth? It's because, again, they don't have water. So on top of it also being like, obviously, like, one of the biggest issues is like that there's just racist policies and racist people who don't care about the plights of Black people or Indigenous people. It's also just like people, like, there are just portions of the population that, like, the government also just does not care about. And these people, like I said, that, like, for example, people in Appalachia don't have access to water, so they're giving their kids soft drinks. And then as you grow up and you're not getting a proper amount of water, you're just drinking a ton of sugar. Like, of course that is going to mess your body up. And that's just another, like, terrible tragedy. So as horrifying and as awful as it sounds, it's like, the reality is that a lot of people in America have not had water for a very long time.
It's sad.
And
I don't even know. What are you going to say, Rajee?
well, no, I was just going to say, and I'm sure, they can blame, like, the environment and the difficulty with getting the water to, but like Joseph pointed out, when they want to do something, they will do it. Like, like, if they think it's important enough, they will get it done. So obviously these communities aren't important to them. Yeah. So anyway.
Well, those communities are very important to all three of us, and that's part of the reason why I think people like to watch our show. And just to let anybody out there that's interested, you can definitely advertise with us. You can visit us, go to our website, www.mysouthernexposure.site. That's www.mysouthernexposure.site. Click on where it says advertise, and you can see all the options that are available to you. Every Sunday, we are on the show, recording live, and it's available for viewing. I want to thank all of our viewers at home. I want to thank Mick and Rajee, and also say I hope you have a good week. I will probably text message and call you both at least 4 or 5 times, because you know how I am. I'm a little bit of a pain in the neck. I don't know if you remember these things when we were kids. These little doodads when we were kids.
I don't know.
The little troll, you don't, because he doesn't remember. You remember those little troll thingies, Rajee, where you take them and you make their hair get crazy?
Oh, yeah, okay. I think I do. Yeah.
Oh, it's a troll. Oh well, I mean I know
It's a little troll
dog, but
pencil.
I've never seen like it looks like a pen with a really
It's a
weird
pencil.
end. Or well, yeah.
No, it's a troll pencil, but I was just trying to interject a little humor. But I want to thank everyone for watching today. Mick or Rajee, it's over to you to give your final comments.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you to everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed our show and wish you all a great week. This week, maybe, do something special to treat yourself and also tell someone you love them, someone important in your life that you love them. Mickey?
Definitely with what Rajee said, because obviously in the past week, myself and my family were in the process of mourning a loved one who passed. So obviously at this time, I think one should be taking the time to reach out to your loved ones, reach out to the people that you care about. Also, in addition to that, be doing outreach to your community. If you know a member of Black Lives Matter or a chapter of Black Lives Matter in your neighborhood, try to see if you can follow them on social media and learn about the events that are going on. If you're interested in other types of local organizing groups, whether you're worried about your status as a tenant who rents and you're worried about your rent not going through, I'm sure that there are unions in your neighborhood, depending on where you are. Like there's a lot of ways to get involved, and to think that we're just going to vote all of this stuff away is naive. We're not going to just vote all of this stuff away. Voting is something that can happen, but it's at this point, it's just one of the many tools that we have to use at this point. You need to be organizing. You need to be joining up with people in your community and making sure that everyone in your community is in solidarity and are able to help each other. So that's what I'll leave everyone with. And Joseph, you can close us out.
Thank you all. Thank you both, Mick. Thank you, Rajee, as well. And thank you at home for watching. We will see you next week, same time, same channel. And make certain to watch all our videos and subscribe if you can. So then that way we can have more watchers and listeners and share also as well. Thank you very much and have a good night.